I'd like to call the Bloomfield Hills special meeting for May 2nd to order. Trustee Van Gimmeret, Secretary Van Gimmeret, can you take attendance?
1, 2, 3, 4. All board members are present with the exception of our Trustee Kumar, who I believe is listening in on WebEx.
Not yet.
Not yet. He'll be a couple minutes late.
I think ours, we're showing as mute, I think.
I don't know if my microphone is on.
So, can you hear you on this?
I have. Can you hear us on WebEx?
Yeah, I might not access through.
Trying to figure out how to do it, so.
Oh,
Yeah, so we might need another minute.
Oh, so I didn't know what kind of caffeine you wanted, so we're going to this tea and then there's two water choices.
there's a lot of variety.
I'll take the one that you don't choose if
Get
we're
there
here that long.
first.
We're doing it so that we're not getting feedback in the system, so here, we may just want to talk a little louder so we can hear each other. I guess you guys can hear each other.
Got it.
Sitting over here. But it is going through to WebEx and to the other feed.
Got it, thanks.
So do I need to start over because I didn't get the beginning?
No, they got it all.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. So we want to move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 2, public comment. We have no public comment today, so we'll move on to item 3, board business. Superintendent search firm. We'll have a visual presentation and interview with Hazard Young and Attea. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. Associates. On the call, we have Mike Richie.
Or Michelle. Assume it's Michelle. No, I'm saying.
Yeah.
It seems Michelle. There's a Michelle and then a Dr. Serena Shivers.
I think they're trying to work it out.
No, he
Oh,
was,
there
I
he
saw,
is. Okay.
I did see Mike earlier, so.
There he is. Oh, he disappeared.
I know the other 2 persons are joining. I did see Mike earlier when I was here.
All right, Mike, you should be all set.
Okay. Give me a second here. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
And can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, great. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing us to present tonight. And we're going to take about 30 minutes or so and kind of walk you through our process and what we're about, HYA, Hazard Young, and Attea. And we're going to start out by just doing a quick introduction, and we'll introduce our team. So my name is Mike Richie. I would be the lead consultant. I have about 39 years of experience in education. 25 years as a superintendent, and prior to that, I was a teacher, principal, and I also coached at the youth level and high school level. I'm an adjunct professor at Viterbo University in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I also serve on the executive committee of the National Association of School Superintendents. And we always like to tell you just a couple personal things. So one of my unique hobbies is I umpire high school baseball, and I also enjoy hunting, fishing, and spending time at our cottage in northern Wisconsin. So, and I do live in central Wisconsin as well. So, Serena, you want to go next?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. I'm going to assume you can hear me as well. My name is Dr. Serena Shivers, and I would be assisting Mike with the search. I am a Michigan resident. I have been an educator for 30 years. I have been an educational leader for about 25 of those 30 years in just about every role in leadership, from principal, assistant principal, assistant superintendent to superintendent. I served 5 years as superintendent in Southeast Michigan. I now support the State Superintendents Association, and I also work with aspiring superintendents not only in the state of Michigan, but also at the national level. I'm a resident in Washtenaw County. To tell you something fun, I guess, about myself is that I don't even know if it's fun, but I'm an active shooter trainer. So on the side, I do a lot of active shooter training. I've trained about 5,000 people in what to do in the event that they encounter an active shooter, and I ballroom dance. So those of you that are from the Detroit area, you're very familiar with Detroit ballroom dancing. So that's a little bit about me, and you'll learn a little bit more about me as we present this evening. Thanks again for having us.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Fiedler. I am a administrative assistant on Mike's team, so I deal mainly with putting together board portals, which we'll talk about later in the presentation. I make sure everybody has access to everything that they need to make sure that we have a really transparent and collaborative search. I live just out of St. Paul, and I have 2 young kids, so I spend a lot of time at the hockey rink.
All right, thank you, Michelle. And Danielle is not on our meeting tonight, but Danielle Martell is our project manager, and she lives in Illinois, very close to Chicago. So you'll see right now, I mean, our team, you've got 4 states covered from the Midwest. And I believe Serena is going to start.
Good evening again. And let me first say that I wish I was there with you in person since I'm not too far away, but I led a 300-person, mostly superintendent school safety summit in Lansing today. And so, as I said to Mike, it's best if I join virtually, but of course, I'm right down the road and look forward to coming to meet you all, hopefully face-to-face in the future. So a little bit about the firm, 35 years of experience in executive searches. And as Mike shared, we've got 4 states covered here just with us today. 1,600 of those searches for school districts, state and national organizations. There are 130 nationwide associates like Mike and myself. And those associates have worked with school districts from enrollments anywhere from 300 to, as you can see, 640,000 students. One of the things that makes HYA unique, and you're going to hear more about it as Mike does his part of the presentation, very comprehensive stakeholder engagement tool and resources, research and analytics that are very deep and thorough, and then a full-time back office staff and IT staff that can support us and you in any way necessary throughout the search process. And most importantly, I know as being a former superintendent and also as a board member myself at one time, that responsive and regular communication is going to be extremely important throughout this process. HYA's signature search process is broken into 4 different stages. The first 3 to 4 weeks will be the engagement stage, where we begin to understand the desires of the board and the community. The second part of that is 6 to 8 weeks of recruitment, bringing the widest range of candidates that we possibly can to meet the requirements and the needs and the desires and the hopes of the community. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how we are going to do that, and myself personally and professionally have a lot of touch points, not just here in the state of Michigan, but nationally. 3 to 4 weeks of the selection process to facilitate the selection process and bring the very best possible match to you all. And then finally, that transition. Again, an area where I spend a lot of my time is helping superintendents navigate into and transition into the first part of their superintendency. So with that, I'll turn it over to my partner, Mike, to begin to talk about what makes HYA different.
Okay, thank you. So we want to just talk about the difference, the HYA difference. And as we already said, one of the things that we have going for us is just we have over 130 associates that work all across the country. And I think what makes us different is just that when you look at our firm, and a couple of things I want to point out. So according to the market research, HYA completes the highest number of searches per year and has the lowest superintendent turnover rates of any of our competitors. I think that's really important. You can see from the graph that we do approximately 80 searches per year, and all those other companies are the other national companies as well. So we do the most searches nationwide. And then I also want to point out our website, and we're going to refer to our website quite a bit tonight. and we're going to show you some samples. But just, again, what makes us different is the fact that we not only put our positions, our open searches on our website, we also put all of our competitors' searches on our website. So I took these numbers from the end of the week last week. If you to go onto our website, you would see 13 current HYA-led searches that are open right now, and those 22 searches that are open. Of those 22 searches, 13 are from different states. So we also have 145 additional searches listed that our competitors are doing all over the country as well. And so we have over 165 searches listed on our website. And when you look at the other two firms that you did interview, I went onto their website and I said one of them has 5 listed and the other one has 2 listed. As far as my track record, I've been working for HOA for 5 years, and I've done about 25, 26 searches. And I'm happy to say all of the superintendents I have placed over the last 5 years are still in their current positions from which they were hired. And part of that is because of what we do with our leadership profile report. It's all about the right fit. It has to be the right fit. And I know someday, one of these people we're going to leave and go to a bigger district. But if we can get 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years out of a superintendent, I think that's a success. And so we talked about the engage phase. What is our engage phase? We involve your stakeholders, and we start off by doing a board planning meeting with the board to go through the search timeline, the process, and this is your search, so you kind of dictate the timeline and how you want things run. We interview every board member individually. We will also, at the planning meeting, we will also go through what other individuals should we interview one-on-one. We'll brainstorm for those. We'll do a number of focus groups across your community, and again, we'll pick those focus groups at that planning meeting. We'll do community forums, and then we have a very detailed stakeholder survey that we'll talk about here in a little bit too. But we take all of that information and we put it in our leadership profile report and our summary survey, and what that does, it really matches the person you're looking for to your district, and then we try to come up with the best characteristics that you're looking for and who's going to be the best fit for your next superintendent. So how we facilitate our focus groups, before COVID, we did everything face to face, and we actually had, okay participation. Some groups were a little bit lower. COVID hits, we went all Zoom, and what we found that our participation picked up substantially when we did Zoom focus groups. And so now what we do is we do a combination. We will do, 15, 20 focus groups, or as many as you want in your district, and we'll do some face to face and we'll do some by Zoom. We'll go to various locations, and we'll also allow your stakeholders to email us their feedback. In our planning meeting, we'll come up with the groups for the focus groups. But the one group that we do insist that we interview or do focus groups with, and that's high school students. We think that's just so important to have the students have a voice in this. And then the other thing, our meeting times, we're flexible. So we'll do morning, afternoon, evening, weekday, weekend, and we look at our analytics. And so what we found for parent focus groups, we've been very successful at Sunday night, 7 p.m. With the parent focus group, just because that seems to be a good time and not a lot of activity is going on at that time. And then we'll seek to get as many stakeholders involved throughout your community. And then we'll also coordinate different various languages, because we know we have some language barriers, and we want to be able to offer the language of your residents, and so to make them comfortable, and we want them involved in the search process. So our survey it's research based, it's norm referenced, it's designed for your superintendent search. And so when we look at this first chart, we're looking at leadership traits. We'll have 6 different subgroups, so we can break it down by students, parents, community, support staff, certified staff, administration, however you want to break it down, but you are allowed 6 different subgroups. And then in this one, for example, they were asked for leadership traits, and there's about 15 choices, and this gives you your top 4, what those stakeholders are looking for. These next 2, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through. So the one upper left, state of the district. Again, what you want to see here is when the dots are further apart, the different subgroups have differences of opinions of your district. And so the closer together, everyone's on the same page. It's very typical that the administrators or teachers are usually further to the right, thinking your district is better or doing very well. And students and parents tend to be a little bit more to the left, where there might be some work to do across your district. But this becomes a great roadmap for your next superintendent. And if there is some disparity, they can kind of dig into it a little bit deeper. And then the same thing on the right, you'll see those dots are closer together when you talk about the leadership profile results and what they want for those characteristics. And so the subgroups are more on the same page when it comes to that area. We take all the information from the focus groups, the community forums, the interviews, the survey, and we put together a very robust report, district leadership profile report. It's anywhere from 20 to 30 pages, and within this report, you're going to have all kinds of information. But what we really focus on is the strengths of your district, what are the challenges of your district, because every district does have challenges. We look for common themes, and then we look for what characteristics are you looking for in your next superintendent. And then we'll put this together, and we'll put this on your website, we'll put this on our website. It becomes, again, that great roadmap for your new superintendent, and it gives them something to really go off of for that first year. And I believe if you have the presentation in front of you, I'm not going to go to it now, but if you have it in front of you, that is a live link where it says example DLPR. If you click on that, you'll be able to see an actual profile report that we put together for a previous search. Again, we keep talking about the HYA difference. 90% of our associates are retired superintendents who are experts in education, very strong network. 75% of the superintendents that we place are recruited by us. I think that's important to point out. Again, our website, we're averaging about 25,000 page views per month. And I've got a slide in a little bit where you can see the analytics. We can kind of track who's looking at what search. We post, I mentioned this earlier, we post all the vacancies, not just our HYA vacancies. So if you go to the website, you'll see that. The other thing that we do is we make a lot of connections, state and national. Both Serena and I are involved in national associations. I did many of our associates, and I spent this past couple months, I was out at AASA in San Antonio recruiting for another position, participated in the job fair that they had, and we had a number of our associates that did presentations. I just was in April, I was in Orlando at the National School Board Association recruiting. We go to local, regional, state associations, we network, we have booths, and we do numerous presentations. And then we also distribute our marketing material at these conferences and conventions. The recruiting advantage, again, I'm going to point out two things in this slide. So the upper left, when our applicants apply through Frontline, and that's a software what we use. And so you'll see all of our searches are listed. So there's 22 at the time of the screenshot. There were 22 searches here. And so every associate across the country can see every applicant from every position that HYA has. And so when we'll talk about the slate in a little bit, we bring your top 6, 8, 10 individuals to the board. So when I have a position or I'm doing a search, I contact the associate, and I can actually get their list of their slate. And so by having access to every search that's going on, I have a very large database of people that I can contact, I can recruit if I believe they're the right fit. The other thing we have is we have our potential candidates do a profile report. So we have a dashboard, and you'll see in this dashboard, currently we have 663 names in there. That goes up on a weekly basis in 44 different states. And then I can go and do some dissecting here on the left. So I can break it down by Midwest. I could break it down by Michigan if I wanted to. Large districts, small districts, what you're currently doing. So again, a very thorough database that we have that we use for a recruiting tool as well. And I just want to point out a couple things here in this slide. So these are my last 6 searches that I did, or recent searches that I did. And when you look at the number of applicants, so Lincoln, Nebraska, for example, there were 22 applicants, 18 from out of state. So 82% of those applicants were from out of state for Lincoln, Nebraska. Tier 1, that would be our strongest candidate pool that matches the profile report. So of the 6 Tier 1 candidates, you can see only 2 were from Nebraska and then 4 were from out of state. And that person that was hired for Nebraska was hired that person was from Iowa. Same thing, Littleton, Colorado just completed that search not too long ago, and 71% or 17 of the 24 were out of state. And you can see again, here's the slate, and the superintendent that was hired in Littleton was from Indiana. Aurora, Colorado, I just finished up this week, and you can see they had 32 applicants, 22 from out of state. They had a very strong slate. They had 12 in Tier 1, and you can see the different states that are represented. That person that was hired happened to be from Colorado. The other one here, I'm going to show you both these, I guess. So Whitewater, Wisconsin, 10 out of state applicants out of 24. You can see this Tier 1 had 10, but 4 from Illinois, and the person that did get this job was from out of state from Illinois. New Richmond, again, 36 out-of-state applicants, and the person that was hired was in Minnesota. And then Verona is a district very comparable to your district. It's about 5,000 student population, a suburb of Madison, Wisconsin. And we ended up with 8 Tier 1, and that person did come from Wisconsin. But we had a North Carolina and we had a California in the top tier. This just shows, again, if you have time, you can watch this video. This is a video of where we had Job Central out in San Antonio. We spent all day recruiting candidates. Job Central is a number of firms are together, and candidates come in as we recruit them. They interview with us, and I just gave an interview to the AASA staff. And Max McGee, the picture on the left, he is our HYA president, and again, goes all over the country speaking and doing presentations as well. Max also is very engaged. As the president, he does a number of searches as he has the role of president as well. But this is Max and myself at the AASA convention. And I believe Serena is going to talk a little bit about the advertising.
Absolutely. So one of the ways that we are going to find the best match, the best candidate for you, is by doing a lot of advertising. Mike mentioned a lot of the ways in which he and I are connected, both locally and nationally, but using our resources like on a national level, our website, our database, also our social media, National Association of School Superintendents, and just general networking, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in just a moment. Locally, we have something in the state of Michigan that's called My Staff, where by posting in this one area, automatically your job availability would come up in other associations. And of course, we would utilize your school district. We have other national options, and that is the will of the board and they would like for us to take. We have the Association of Latina Administrators. We have the National Alliance of Black School Educators, in which I'm a member. Ed Week, of course, is another way in which educators all across the country find out about job openings and postings. And then finally, the American Association of School Superintendents and Administrators is something that I belong to. That's where Mike just recently presented, and we use all of our avenues and connections to advertise in that area as well. So some of the other things that we can share with you is our ability to do some advertising analytics so that we can look at, as Mike mentioned, who's viewing the advertisement, how frequently they're viewing it, how many active users we have, how many views per user, how much time they spend as they navigate throughout the page. You know, as we all do that scrolling, how quickly do we scroll, and how often do we say, oh, wait a minute, that got my attention, and stop. And so we can be able to look at that analytics and see how many people we're reaching and how often we are reaching them and how much long they are spending on the page. And then the number of times users triggered an event, like they downloaded something or they scrolled something or they started a session, some sort of engagement we can gauge as well. That's the back-end analytics that really helps us know how well our advertisement is reaching potential candidates for you.
So our search process, we have it broken down here into 8 different parts, but the first thing we do is as we get our applicants coming in, we conduct a screening interview with every single applicant. So we'll spend, 45 minutes with every applicant. Normally it's done through Zoom, but we will start getting a feel of what they're like, what they're looking for, if they're going to start matching that profile report. And then what we'll do is we'll present a tiered slate to the board. So the slate is normally 6 to 8 to 10 people. We really try to encourage you to interview 6, and some boards like 7 or 8, but once you get over 6, it gets to be a lot to interview. So we really try to hone in on that first round of interviews of 6 is a pretty good number. Sometimes we'll have a stronger slate and you're going to have, 8, 10, 12 on that tier 1. And then we spend a lot of time with the board trying to, and again, you actually narrow this down, but we walk you through a process of how we can do that and how we can compare head to head. And again, who's going to be that right fit. And so then we have to whittle those 10, 12 names down to 6, 7, or 8 for the first round of interviews. But we're right there with you. We help you. We'll give you a tier 2 as well. Tier 2, they might be a strong superintendent, but maybe they don't quite match that profile report, or maybe we found something in our Google search, or maybe there was something in the previous district where they didn't really leave on good terms. So that's in there. And then the tier 3 are the ones who we just feel will not be a good fit for your district. But you as the board can move any of those people to any tier you feel that you would like to see them in. And you're going to see all the applications as they come in, and we'll talk about that as we talk about the portal. We'll support and prepare the board for interviews as needed. The board will select the number of candidates to be interviewed. We'll co-coordinate the day in the district for the finalists. We really feel it's important for your 2 or 3 or 4 finalists to spend the full day in the district. Do some meet and greets, meet staff, meet students, meet families, meet parents, get a tour of the community, tours of the school. Just give them one full day in there. They're doing their research on your district as well, but the day in the district is really important. And even if this happens over the summer, I still believe it's really important to do a day in the district to get that community tour, and then maybe you'll have summer school going on. We'll have to figure out a way how we can, get those candidates involved throughout the summer months as well. And then we'll conduct reference checks, blind reference checks, internet searches. We know that if we call the references, they're going to be glowing. So we'll do a lot of blind reference checks. We'll call people they don't list, or people from the district they're in, they may not list. We look for red flags. If you're a sitting superintendent and you don't list your board president, that's a red flag. If you're a principal looking for a superintendent job, but you don't list your superintendent as a reference, that's a red flag. And so we'll dig deeper into that. We'll assist the board then in developing those interview questions, and then we'll coordinate the final interviews between the candidate and the board. And then we have a very thorough third-party background check as well. We'll also work with the board around those legal obligations. We'll work with your legal counsel to make sure we are in compliance with all Michigan laws. So our data collection for our meet and greets is really important. And so as these candidates do meet and greets, you want to know what their feedback is. So this isn't something that Michelle does. She puts this form together, and this is an actual form from a search I did in South Sioux City, Nebraska. So as we do our meet and greets, there's 2 questions on this form that the stakeholders can give you feedback. So the first question is, what are the strengths of this candidate, and what would this candidate bring to our district? The second question is, what would concern you if this candidate were hired? And so all throughout the meet and greets, you're going to get instant feedback, and I'm going to show you in the next slide what that looks like as these stakeholders are filling out their feedback form. Also in Michigan, with your open meeting law, where you do your interviews in open session for that first and second round, you could also have this form available for anyone that is watching the interviews, and again, they can give you instant feedback as well. We make it very clear this is the board's hire, but they're just looking for that feedback. And then you'll see we have a QR code as well, so they can go off the link or off the QR code. But this is a very useful tool to give board that instant feedback. And then this is an actual, again, we took some names out here, but this is an actual spreadsheet of what the board gets in real time. So as they fill in their Google Docs. You're gonna get this in real time, and so you can see the column on. Column D is what would concern you, and then note on the bottom we also have this in various languages. And so this was, I believe, Aurora, Colorado, where they have 160 languages across their district, and they did this in about 12 different languages. So you can see the bottom tabs would be other languages that we would help you coordinate if need be. We talked about, we're a national presence, and so in your proposal, you'll see all of the searches that we do, and so we do about 80 searches per year. We're all over, and I'm not going to click on here to show you this document, but again, you have this. It's on our website as well, and you can just kind of get a good handle of how many searches we do per year. And then you'll see we broke this down. This goes back, there's 5 years of searches that you'll see. And then you'll see the districts between 0 and 5,000, and then over 5,000 and so forth. It's just a nice document for you to have. And Serena's going to take this next slide.
Sure. So because I am from Michigan, I said, this is my slide, right? And so one of the things I want you to know is that we've done several searches since 1992 across the state of Michigan. You can see the districts that are listed here. But as I said in my introduction and have reiterated, I am a former superintendent here in the state of Michigan. I currently work as the deputy for the State Superintendents Association. So what does that mean? What that means is I have two main roles. I have actually probably 30 roles, but two of the main that I spend quite a bit of time with. One, new superintendents. I train all of the new superintendents across the state of Michigan during their first 3 years as superintendent through our new Superintendents Academy. The second thing, though, is that I work with aspiring superintendents. We ran back in February in Lansing an Aspiring Superintendents Institute. We're going to do it again this fall. And I also help run our Horizons program. Our Horizons program are for those administrators that are looking to step into the superintendency, that are getting their central office certification. So I have, in my daily interactions, access to superintendents right here and aspiring superintendents right here in the state of Michigan. But I also have a very significant national presence as well. I work with AASA, which is the National Superintendents Association. I lead an academy. I'm a part of the steering committee for academy that they're running for educators that are stepping into leadership roles and responsibilities. And I also am the lead head instructor for an institute called the Institute of Education Innovation. And I have been for the last 2 years running their National Aspiring Superintendent Institute, where I am working with aspiring superintendents from all over the country. And in the last several months, we've just placed a couple of them in their first superintendency. So not only do I have a strong Michigan connection, but I also have a very strong national connection and presence, and would bring that as part of my role and responsibility to the search.
Thank you. So we talked a little bit about that transparency and how you see everything as we work through our search. So Michelle, do you want to take this slide? This is what Michelle does, and she does a great job at this.
Yeah, so this would be your board portal. And so again, it's one link that you can bookmark and have access to everything throughout your search. So there's no searching through your emails for this document or that document, sending things back and forth. It's all housed in one place. So if you go forward, I believe that you can see how it breaks down by search area or phase. So every phase is going to have things in here. For example, I just want to bring you attention to all of the job postings. Everywhere you post it, the links are going to be right there. So you can say, hey, did you guys get that posting up? You can check right there, and the links will be there for you. You get access to all of the applicant applications and materials will be housed right there for you. And then, like we said, any of those Google Forms, any of that candidate responses, that feedback that you're going to get is also housed in that portal. So your timelines, your calendar things, everything will be there for you, organized. And it has really saved districts a lot of time, a lot of emails going back and forth.
Great, thank you. So satisfaction, as far as this is just one of my favorite things in the slide here, I guess, is this is a person that did not get a job, but he sent an email. He was very impressed with our search, the process, disappointed he didn't get the job, but he liked the way the process was run. And so, you know, it's just, I think what we do is we go above and beyond, and we will be with you every step of the way, and we're going to find you that right fit. So our client guarantee, again, we have a 2-year guarantee, so that's there. If your superintendent does leave, we will do the search for free, you know, other than expenses. I have not had to do one of these yet, so hopefully my record will continue. And but I just want you to know that if for whatever reason, you know, something does happen, we are here to be with you again until we get that right fit. And if the person leaves, we're still with you as well. The first couple of years. Serena, I believe this is yours.
Yeah, just again, really making sure that you know that we're committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion through all of the networks and all of the associations that really line with that strong commitment. We also make sure that the commitment is interwoven at the desire of the community and the extent in the survey questions and in the interview questions. And we just have a strong partnership with AASA that does a great job of recruiting superintendents, aspiring superintendents that are in unrepresented groups, for example, like female leaders. So we will just be as thorough as we possibly can to make sure that we bring all of the clients and all of the aspiring superintendents as we can that meet your needs and meet your community's desires to you all as a client.
So again, in full transparency, our price fee is $18.5. This does include the survey. I just want to make sure I point that out. And so this includes the survey, and then we've got travel is capped at $3,500. The more we do through Zoom and we do some of those focus groups, you know, virtually, that expense will be a lot less. And with Serena being very close, again, that will limit our expenses as well. And so the advertising is up to the board. We do sit down with you at that planning meeting to talk about, okay, where do you want to post this position? We also encourage you to post a position in some of your neighboring states as well, from their state organizations, because that might be a pretty good draw. Those are fairly cheap. Once you start doing the AASA, the national package, it gets to be a little bit more expensive. But again, this is a very important job, and you want to do a very thorough job with that national advertising, and especially this position in your district would be a nice draw because it's a great position. So there's our fee structure, and I know we get the questions and answers. You may have some questions on that. And then the transition plan, we offer a lot. And this is after the person's hired. If you want us to do continued work with coaching, board governance, goal setting, strategic planning, we also have that available. And we're almost done here. I think there's 2 more slides. So Serena, you want to talk about the timeline?
Yeah, so there's 2 options here, and I'm going to let you, Mike, just differentiate between the 2 options. But what I wanted to bring attention to the board in my preparation and in talks for today, I understand the desire to have a superintendent formally begin by July 1. But I just want to raise, having been a superintendent and also a board member, the real true concern of a exemplary superintendent from leaving their district in a lurch. If you're looking for someone who is a sitting superintendent, or you're looking for someone who's in a central office job, assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, in a district that's going to meet the high quality and standards that you all have in your community, we have to recognize that that person, he or she, will need adequate time, not only to prepare to transition into your district, but also to adequately make sure that they leave the right way and they keep their track record intact by making sure that the district that they are leading is prepared for them to lead. So this timeline on the left is a August 15th formal start for the superintendent. And I'm going to let Mike talk about the chart to the right.
Okay, so I just want to point out a couple of quick things here. So the chart on the left is we'll post a position immediately, we'll start recruiting, and you'll have someone in place by August 15th. The timeline on the right is if you end up going the interim route for this year, and then we will pick this search up, midsummer and into the fall, you would have someone hired by the end of December, but that person would not start till July 1 of 2024. So we talk about all this in that planning meeting. This is the board's decision. This is the board's call. Some districts will do with the late search like this is they will try timeline 1 to see what happens, to see what kind of applications are coming in, see how that recruiting is going, and maybe even interview. But then if they feel they don't have the right fit, they'll put it on pause. We'll hire an interim, and then we'll pick up the search again in the fall. And again, you'll get probably better quality candidates by opening the search in the fall. So you can try it. If it doesn't work out, you can go back to Plan B. The other thing I want to point out is in our base fee that we showed you, that would also include placing an interim in your district and working with you to hire an interim. So if you do have to go that route, there is no additional expense from HYA. That price would also include assisting the district in hiring an interim as well. So there's 2 timelines, but again, we go through this in detail with the board, pros and cons of each of those timelines. So in wrapping up here again, the why in HYA, I think we pointed out a lot of things what makes us different. I know this is a repeat slide that we had earlier, but just our national presence and what we can do, and our associates all over the U.S. I believe we have our associates in over 30 states. And we talk daily. We are always on the phone or Zoom or email with our other associates or other partners looking at their slates, their tier, who do they have? And so we share candidates with each other all the time. But we are a very reputable firm that do a great job. I did include some letters in the proposal. I also listed a number of searches that we did. And please, please reach out to any of those references. And I think you're going to get a pretty good mark of the searches that we have led. So that does conclude our presentation, and I am guessing you probably have some questions for us.
Thank you, Dr. Richie, and we will start the questions. Trustee Colvin, do you have any questions?
No, not at the moment. No.
Trustee Noble?
I have a couple questions. My first question is, you said there's a peak time to have a opening for a superintendent, or at least you might have suggested that. When would you say is the peak time to get the most applicants and the highest quality applicants? Because I'm new at this and I'd love some feedback about that.
Great question. Serena kind of alluded to the late hire right now, and the absolute best time is early fall. That's when people are looking. The school year has started, and you have a long time to transition. So the best time would be early fall. Not to say you won't get someone right now. You certainly could. But if you want the most applicants, the high quality applicants, the best time is that late fall, early fall, very early winter. Serena, you want to jump in as well?
Yeah, I would just say what I've seen, just kind of repeatedly here in the state of Michigan is that late fall, early winter. I think that's about the time of year where people are going to transition. They're starting to notify their current board that they may be transitioning for whatever reason it might be, or they may just be personally thinking this is a good time for me to see, what is available. Certainly, once you start getting past the month of February and March, people have kind of settled in and are beginning to, quite honestly, prepare for the next school year. And so a high quality, really experienced candidate is going to find it hard to leave past that time frame. Doesn't mean that they won't, because they do all the time. But again, we're trying to find you the best possible match. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you so much for that explanation. And I've been learning more and more about how superintendents get hired with reaching out to other past board members. So I appreciate your input as well. I also wanted to know, have you done searches during a difficult time in other school districts, just as we are going through a difficult time here in Bloomfield Hills during our search? Have you dealt with difficult situations before?
I hate to say this, but yes, many. It's not an uncommon situation. So this is the state of education right now, and it's not just in your district. It is everywhere. So the answer is yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. I really appreciate that, and that's all I have for right now.
You are not alone.
Okay.
Trustee Fowler?
I would just echo and let you all know that I work with school boards across the country as well, working right now with one in Illinois, and have worked with some locally on issues that are related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I have definitely seen communities that are in the midst of these very tough decisions and sometimes having to make some very tough decisions. So both Mike and I bring those experiences working in sometimes turbulent situations as well.
Thank you. Trustee Fowler?
Thank you for the presentation. Couple questions. First, has HYA had experience looking at potentially non-traditional candidates for a superintendent role? For example, someone with significantly less, whether it's teaching experience, administrative, central office experience. I think in the state of Michigan, our requirement is a Michigan school admin cert, as well as obtaining so many CE, credit hours in the first couple of years. So that's the baseline. There's not a bar of you have to be an educator or an administrator for X number of years necessarily. So the question is, in our case, that might be something to have a larger pool. And so my question is, have you done that kind of search where you're looking at potentially non-traditional candidates in that capacity?
We have, and we actually like slating non-traditional candidates, and so we think they should definitely be brought forward to the board. Sometimes, if you're a non-traditional, it does scare board members a little bit. They just don't feel comfortable. But there are a number of positions that have been hired with that non-traditional, and we also do a lot of organizational searches. And we just did AASA. We do a lot of school board association, executive director searches too. And so, those are not always sitting superintendents as well. So you're looking at with nonprofits, you're looking at, a superintendent. A number of other districts have hired attorneys as a superintendent, a military background as a superintendent, a business leader as a superintendent. So they're out there, they're harder to find. But versus a sitting superintendent or someone a traditional, but yeah, we like and we encourage people, and we like when we have a diverse slate. Our job, if we're doing our job, we're going to make your decision difficult. We want to bring you a very strong slate, and that can be traditional and non-traditional if we can get non-traditional to apply.
Okay, great. And then one of the slides you had on there really showed a high percentage of out-of-state candidates, which to me was a little shocking because I had heard so often that typically for most of the superintendent hires, they are within the state definitely and typically close proximity. And on some of those slides you had many out-of-state hires and even just many candidates that were in tier 1. Is that a normal trend for HYA? Are those outliers? Like, what would you consider to be if we had, how many candidates we had in our pool, how many would you expect on average might end up in a tier 1 that would be out-of-state candidates?
That's a great question.
Can I take the first part of that question, Mike, and then I'm going to toss it to you
go ahead.
Specifically about HYA. I think that ties back into the timeline question, because I think that's a very, very good question. I think the further you are away from the district, the harder it's going to be to make a move of your family, of your, all of the things that go along with that as it gets closer to the school year for all kinds of personal reasons that we can think of and professional reasons. So I think attracting out-of-state candidates is stronger with the more time that you have. So I'm going to toss it over to you, Mike, and let you finish that question.
Yeah, and it depends on the district. And so I know you are going through a little bit of turmoil right now, so that could possibly deter someone from applying from out of state. However, you have a very good, very nice salary range, so that will help someone from out of state. So you have to weigh everything, and then it depends on So a lot of my Wisconsin searches, we get Minnesota, we get Illinois. Very seldom are we going to probably hire someone from California, New Jersey, East Coast, West Coast. It's going to be more of that Midwest. So in Michigan, I would look for more of the Midwest out-of-state applicants. Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin, some of those neighboring states as well. So East Coast, West Coast, you might get 1 or 2 or 3, but you're not going to have a ton from the East Coast, West Coast, and so a lot of the people from out of state tend to be within their regions as well. So again, it depends on the timing, depends on the district. But yes, we will have, if we have, and I'm going out on a limb here, but if we have 25 to 30 applicants, you should have 6, 8 or so at least from out of state. But
Okay.
it just, again, depends on the situation.
Perfect. All right, thank you. That's my questions.
Thank you, Trustee Fala. Trustee Hill?
Thank you. Touching on the note about the difficult climate that educators and people interested in the education profession are facing, as you indicated, and it's a relief to hear it's not just an issue that is present in our school district, which I think has a lot more positive than negative, but unfortunately, news headlines overpower some of that. What would be your plan to proactively recruit candidates, and it's not just recruit resumes, but sell the district and this opportunity? How would you paint the picture for candidates and try and incentivize them to show interest in this position?
Let's say that it was in that meeting that they mentioned was main turbines. He was like, look, you can install parking lots.
Are we supposed to be hearing that? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't hear him.
You got to mute Siva.
Mute Siva. He's muted now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I hopefully caught my whole question.
I did. I heard the question. Yes, I did. So thank you. Great question. So how do you sell the district? So the first thing is the posting has to be appealing to people. So that's the we have to make sure it's engaging, and our promotional flyers or the things that we would, when we meet with the board, we may have to meet with your communications person, maybe some other administrators, but we have to come up with a great detailed plan on how to sell that district within that posting to make it look like it's going to be a great job. The district leadership profile report is going to talk about your strengths, and so like I said earlier, every good applicant is going to research your district. So yes, they're going to know what's happening currently in your district. However, you have a lot of strengths, and we have to sell those strengths. And there are superintendents who actually thrive on coming to a district where there are challenges, and they think they can be a great healer. They can work with the board, they can work with the community, and they can bring people together again. And so again, that's going to be part of that profile report. And those are the kinds of qualities, characteristics that we're going to be looking for in your next superintendent. So Serena, you want to say anything else about that?
Yeah, I sure do. I will also just echo, this is a great opportunity for my Michigan connection to come in play. I know Bloomfield Hills community very well, and word of mouth travels, and I'm quite certain that prospective candidates would reach out to me at a national level and say, hey, I'm really interested in that position in Bloomfield Hills, but what's going on there? And that's where those personal connections and as well as a national kind of footprint really comes into play, to be able to share, what's happening. And knowing that you're not alone should let you know that anyone that's making a move in this climate at this point in time, understands also that it's public education and just education in general is not like it typically has been, and the experiences that we're dealing with and the challenges that we're dealing with, quite frankly, are unprecedented in many, many ways. And so being able to have that candid conversation about, hey, you're going to a phenomenal community and exemplary school district, here's their background, here's what they're known for, and here is where you will fit into this picture and be able to help lead this community would be a great conversation for me to have.
Other questions, Trustee Hill?
No, thank you.
Oh, okay. Trustee Van Gimmerick?
Okay, so you showed us 6 recent searches where there were candidates chosen. In all but one of them, the candidate was from an area within like 50 miles of the state border. And then the other, the candidate had previously been an assistant superintendent in the same state that he got hired into. My question is, why do you think that boards don't choose out-of-state, like true out-of-state candidates?
I think they're a little bit afraid because there's a misconception where board members might think if you're from out of state, you're not going to know the Michigan law, you're not going to know the Michigan finance, you're not going to know everything you should know as a superintendent about the state of Michigan. That's probably correct, but I would turn that to say, this person's a great leader. You want a great leader. In a larger district, you have a finance person. That finance person is going to be able to teach your out-of-state superintendent about Michigan finance. And you've got supports in place. You've got organizations that can mentor, that can train, that can work with the person. So I think the biggest thing is just fear. People are reluctant to hire out of state because they just think that perception is they're not going to know the state. I've heard it over and over and over in searches where, we can't hire someone outside of the state because they're not going to understand our system, and that's not true.
Thank you.
Okay, so I do have a question, and I don't want to repeat what was already asked. My question then is associated with the slide number, I think it's 28. Wait, I moved. My apologies, 27. HYA price proposal.
Yep.
So in looking at your $1,800, $500 fee, and then also looking at the additional cost. So for a comprehensive background check, what would be the difference between a comprehensive background check that would cost us additional funds versus, I would guess, a non-comprehensive background check?
Okay, yeah, good question. So again, that's an optional item that every board member can decide if they want to take. But so when we talk about the out-of-state candidate, for example, so I know in every state you've got your database, you've got your court system. It's very easy to do a very cheap, free, reasonable cost background check for someone that's lived in Michigan their whole life. But if you look at hiring someone from out of state, they maybe lived in multiple states. So we hire a third party, basically an investigation company. And so this is a very, very thorough background check. And it's actually, I feel like it can be intrusive at times because you're going to see not just a criminal, if you see any criminal or motor vehicle, you're going to see credit card payments. Or are they late on the credit card payment? Are they late on their mortgage payments? You're going to see verifying their college degree, their college credits, the national criminal record history, national sex offender, news media, social media. So the biggest difference between the comprehensive and the basic, the comprehensive includes all the social media and all the news media, where the basic one does not include the social media, but includes everything else. So you're going to see federal criminal record history, county criminal, social security trace, personal profile summary. Again, it's a very, very comprehensive report. If you hire someone from a neighboring district that's from Michigan, it's been there forever, has a great track record, you may choose not to do this big comprehensive report. Most districts like doing this because they're doing their due diligence, and they feel if you're going to pay a fairly large, substantial salary to your superintendent, a $1,900 final due diligence background check it's not a bad deal.
I would imagine that would be something that we would all probably agree upon. So now that kind of puts us over into possibly $20,000. So then if you can also speak to the additional days. And so what exactly, I'm reading the bubble that's on the slide, but could you explain to us what the additional days a little bit more elaboration for that would be, is that in addition to the $3,500 that we could incur for travel? So that could be possibly an additional $6,000.
Yeah, so we do almost all of our searches within the timeline. Very seldom do we end up going over the days. It has to be board approved. So if we, let's just say we do 15 focus groups, and that would fall within our days. But one board, we actually did about 35 focus groups. So, I mean, that's really extensive, but the board wanted that. And so that did add 2 extra days to the search, but that all has to be board approved, all up front. It's not like at the end of the search, you're gonna get a bill for an extra $5,000. Our fee is $18,500, and if we go above the days that are allowed, that has to be board approved. Some boards want us at all of the interviews, so that's going to add additional time. Normally, we would not be there. We would guide you through them. We would walk you through them. But if you wanted us at every single interview, first round, if you wanted us at the final round interviews or day in the district, again, that could get to exceed that number of 4 days. But again, that would all be board approved.
Okay, so our contact with you would be, from what I'm hearing you say, 4 days that we would have to actually engage with you. Could you also, if we do not, I know I have other questions, but I want to let move on so Trustee Colin can also ask his questions. If we do not have a superintendent at the end of our search, and if we have to go beyond the time frame, do we sign a new contract with you, or are we just paying for additional days beyond if we don't have a sitting superintendent at the end of the search?
So there's actually no additional cost, because where the additional cost comes in would be for your focus groups and your days in the district as well. We are with you until the end. And so if you hire an interim, you open the search up again, you don't like any of the individuals, you keep going. We are with you until you hire someone. Now, if we have to keep coming back for interview after interview after interview, that would add a day or two, additional cost as well. But by that time, we would walk you through the procedure. We would help you come up with the questions. We would write the questions. You would be able to interview without even having us present, or we could be on Zoom as well. So there's lots of other options, but we are with you until the end, and that price does not change unless the board approves any additional days.
Thank you so much. Trustee Colin?
So just as a follow-up, I think it was Dr. Serena, you mentioned that you know Bloomfield Hills quite well. Can you elaborate what you mean by Bloomfield Hills community quite well?
Dr. Shivers.
Yeah.
Dr. Shivers, sorry.
No problem. No. I was a curriculum director in Southfield for 3 years and spent a ton of time, now it's been a minute, a ton of time in Oakland County. So just over that time, I've worked with, educators, don't know if they're still there, but just worked with educators that were both at Oakland ISD, and then with other curriculum instructional people that were in Bloomfield and also in the larger Oakland community over that period of time. That was back in 2007 till 2010, where I was the curriculum director in Southfield.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That's it.
All right, any other questions? Any other follow-up questions? Okay, well, we thank you for your time. We appreciate your presentation, and we will be in touch.
All right, thank you so much.
Oh, wait, Silva, I apologize, one more question. Silva, are you there now?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry. Thank you, Michelle. No questions from my side. I think the 6 of you brought up the questions that I had in one way or another. Thank you.
I didn't see your face, so it made me forget that you're online. Thank you, Trustee Kumar. So now we do thank you all for your presentation, and we'll conclude with our conversations now. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, and best of luck in your decision-making process and your search.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does now?
Siva, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to item 3C. Oh, wait. 3B, Superintendent Search discussion. So we'll just, anyone want?
I'll start.
Okay.
I don't think my mind has changed from the last meeting. I think MLI is, oh, sorry. I don't think my mind has changed from the last meeting. I still think MLI is probably our best bet based on what I've heard and who I've spoken to. I'll leave it at that.
I guess I've been reaching out to old board members to see what their experiences have been like and what to expect during this process, because I don't have anything to fall back on except for dean searches, which are somewhat similar. But to make a long story short, I don't think we should rush through the process and condense the time. This is one of our most important decisions we're going to make. That's why we ran, and that's the biggest area of power we have as board members, as you all know. So in my opinion, we should not rush. And I would really like to do some more due diligence around HYA. I saw that they did do the Birmingham search back in 2017, and I would like to call them and see what their experience was, because I did like what what they had to say. And I think national searches, I've changed my mind. I originally thought national searches, I don't know if we need that. But with some feedback from community members, we might get a great candidate out of state. So I'm just trying to learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and I'm kind of open to more discussion.
Fair. Trustee Fala? I was going to call you by your first name by mistake.
I 1,000% agree with what Trustee Noble just said. That was one of the top things on here, is that it felt like we were trying to condense the timeline a lot, and I'm just not in favor of that. If this takes us longer and we have to go through an interim period, I think that's better. I know we would love to have somebody in place, but I don't want to put up artificial boundaries to just say we're trying to do this, before the current superintendent leaves, or before the new school year, or at the timing of the new school year. It just seems like we just don't need to do that. We can have an interim and take our time and do the right thing, not to be slow. We still want to move with diligence, but there's just no need to rush. Beyond that, the prior two presentations from MASB and MLI, honestly, you could have juxtaposed the names for the most part, and to me, I felt like it's going to be the same pool of candidates. They've got the same network. They're going to talk to the same people. They're going to likely present the same people. They're not going to go and find many non-traditional or national candidates, which maybe that's fine. I don't know. In my opinion, I don't think it is. I think I almost felt like MASB could have a person in the bag that they're like, here you go. It just felt like there's not going to be a lot of effort in gathering candidates. HYA, I feel, based on the statistics they showed with having a lot of out-of-state candidates, they talked about bringing up the fact about the timing. Who of the three was the only firm to bring that up and say, hey, ideally, you would do this in late fall, early winter. You're going to get more at that time. So I think we need a leader at the end of the day. It doesn't have to always be, a superintendent with X number of years of experience in education or whatever it may be. Our requirements for the state of Michigan are, you have a Michigan School Admin Cert and you have CE credits. And you can get those in the first 3 years of your time as a superintendent. You do not, that's the requirement. So I don't want to set up just this notion that we have to go out and get somebody that's a soup in Michigan or a principal looking to be a soup. We can expand that out and we'll see what we find. So in my opinion, I think HYA to me was the firm that presented that kind of a campaign thus far. Not to say that MASB or MLI couldn't, but they didn't showcase that very well compared to HYA.
Yeah, and so just so we know, either firm that we select, we can determine if the time frame is longer or shorter for the search, and either firm that we select would help us with placing of a interim if we went in that direction. So I don't know if that kind of helps a little bit with your decision tonight. So, okay, Trustee Hill.
Thank you. If I was evaluating all three presentations and services offered based on the proposals that I reviewed, far and away from me, if all things being equal, pretending price wasn't a point, HYA would be my vote. The price differentiator is a reason to pause and contemplate that and say, if you're going to spend that much more money, is it worth it? So I think that when you evaluate the depth of their services and their connections nationwide, I'm not in favor of, hey, we have to pull in an out-of-state candidate. We need to pull in an extremely diverse set of highly qualified candidates, whether that's locally or nationally. So I believe that their ability to reach that depth of the candidate pool, I think, is greater than the others. I was impressed with the resources they presented in terms of personnel that they would be able to dedicate. I appreciate that they have someone locally who understands Michigan and is in touch. Sorry, I'm looking directly at you, Michelle.
That's okay. I like our conversation.
In touch with the Michigan education community. Another major differentiator for me with HYA is their language translation services. That's clearly an important factor in our community, and I think the increase in cost is worth that alone.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Trustee Van Gemeren?
The concern I have with, and it's not with spending more money, it's that I just don't feel that any of these firms are truly national search firms. Sure, they can say, we got 8 candidates from 4 different states that were in Tier 1, but they don't explain what, maybe I should have asked this question, like what Tier 1 is, but at the end of the day, the 6 that he showed us, Lincoln, Nebraska, the candidate was 40 miles away from, like the border, Littleton, Colorado. The candidate was from Indiana, but he came from Fort Collins, Colorado, so he's just coming home, right? Aurora was the same state. Verona was the same state. New Richmond, Wisconsin was 10 miles from Minnesota. Whitewater, Wisconsin was 20 miles from Illinois. So none of these people that they eventually hired were truly out-of-state candidates. And so to me, like, does that mean that the other out-of-state candidates really weren't that good? Or that they just didn't want to hire someone from out of state? And I'm afraid that the other candidates weren't very good because of what I've heard about our last national search. And so I don't want to pay someone to bring me in a bunch of candidates that I got to interview that aren't any good, just to say that I interviewed someone from Nebraska, so I don't know. I might, like Carolyn, need a little bit more time to look into what HYA is all about as far as whether or not the candidates that they're bringing in are Tier 1, as they say. So.
Siva, do you have anything you want to say? Oh, were you done?
Yeah, I'm set.
Okay, you paused. Trustee Kumar.
Thank you, Michelle. To the point that you made earlier, I think we can set the timeline for the search. We can set the timeline to be whatever it takes to find the right candidate, HYA or MI or MASB. So I don't think that should be a factor. That should be a factor in our decision making of which firm we pick. I am not so worried about the fees from HYA. To Caroline's point, we can find out more about the search from 2017, I suppose. We can also find out why they were not selected back in 2019 when they were one of the 6 firms which were interviewed by the BHS board at that time. Mm-hmm. They were not in the top 2. And so we did, if I recall from the minutes of that meeting, both firms picked in the top 2 from the 6 firms who presented, were from out of state. And the one which did come home, or which one was the final one, did not, or did find our current superintendent, but it took an extended period of time for that search, like 30 weeks, which I think is unnecessary, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be the 12 to 14 weeks necessarily presented by the other two firms, but that's at our discretion, and we can stretch it out further if we need to be. But I don't think the timeline they put together today would be acceptable in the scenario number 2, in my opinion. So bottom line, I'm comfortable supporting. I'm sure my vote doesn't count today, but I'm still comfortable with
It will
MLI.
not. You say you're comfortable with waiting? Is that what you said?
No, I said I'm comfortable.
Oh, with
supporting-
MLI, okay,
Correct.
okay. So we'll come back to you.
That's fine.
Okay.
I have some comments.
I know, after I comment, and then you can go again. So for me, when I listened to the previous presentations and listened to tonight, I guess an advantage would be that HYA had a chance to go back and listen possibly to our board meeting and prepare for some of the things that we had discussed. So versus how the other firms didn't have that advantage, right? And so there were some things that were somewhat highlighted that touched upon some of the questions that were asked last time. So I thought that that was a little bit of an advantage. So we may have gotten a little bit of a different scope than the other two firms were able to present. I would say that all the firms that, for me, from what I was hearing them say, have the ability to do a so-called national search. And so I think MLI was with an additional cost that they would be able to provide us with a national search. And MASB, I believe that was a part of their scope for a national search, and they had connections outside of the state of Michigan with a few of the groups that they were connected with. So I think that all firms, from what I could see, had very similar options for us to use as far as, you know, us recruiting folks from across this great nation. I did like, as Trustee Hill pointed out, the fact that they had translation services in case we had candidates or ESL or non-English speaking candidates. That would be amazing to have a diverse population of candidates in that particular capacity. But I would hope or imagine that, to me, in looking at the one slide that they had not had a Michigan search since 2020, it somewhat was a red flag for me as to why other school board searches, and we know that there were so many last year, none of which use HYA. And so for them not to have had a Michigan search in 3 years, it was somewhat of a red flag, at least to me. And so I would be comfortable, in my opinion, waiting if more folks wanted to take some time to do some work, but I would want us to set some sort of a deadline as to how long we want to really take to continue to kind of look into the information. So not that we have to pick a superintendent soon, but at least for us to start working with an organization so we can work through moving forward eventually with our search and interim or search. So those are my 3 cents. I have 5 cents actually, but go ahead, Paul.
Okay. So a couple of things. Two things that, you know, and I think we're articulating it now, we want to break down is we're not in any rush to hire a superintendent, right, in terms of timing, right? If we pick search firm X tonight, doesn't mean we have to hire a superintendent by the end of July. 2, and I think we've said it, you know, talking about, people have said, you know, going back to experienced board members asking their feedback. I led a superintendent search. I was here in 2019. I did not pick we. No, I'm just saying, I was part of the
Say we did
process.
not pick.
We, not we, but we, my old board, did not pick for a reason, I don't want to go into it. We picked a so-called national search firm that said the same things, even more obviously in detail than what we got tonight. And I thought we would get all of these candidates. We got this, we got that. We didn't get anything better than what a local so-called search firm would have provided. I've done due diligence. We're talking about a Birmingham search. I talked to their board president, highly recommends MLI. I talked to one of the board members in West Bloomfield, highly recommends MLI. I've talked to other people that have used them, highly recommends MLI. I mean, I don't know what else due diligence we're going to do in terms of bringing in search firms. I know Michelle and Siva spent an enormous amount of time to even get to the point, and I know Trustee Hill too, to get to the point where we had these 3 firms. We're not going to find any more firms. We can go from now until July. I'm telling you, we're going to end up with whatever we decide to pick tonight. I think we should move forward, pick one of the firms tonight, and if we are going to spend time. If we don't get a candidate pool that we're satisfied with, have that search firm go back and get us a candidate pool based on the profile that our community comes up with.
Yeah. I think the other was FaceTime. We only get 4 times that we get to interact with them in person. I thought that was kind of like we're going to Zoom our entire relationship. So I thought that was kind of impersonal, at least to me, especially if we're looking to have our community present in various different aspects along the way. I just thought that was a little, just for me, impersonal. But other comments?
My opinion is that we're going to get the same candidates from each firm, and so I would go with whatever firm you are most comfortable with, the search process that they outlined. But then again, the search process is pretty much the same for each of them too. When you really stack them up next to each other, they have the same flow chart for each firm. So I'm inclined to listen to Paul and his experience and the experience of other board members, but I'm also here to listen to be persuaded,
I think there's this,
for-
oh, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead, Carolyn.
I was just going to say, I appreciate all the work and time you've done in searching for these search firms. And, I am just saying that sometimes it takes time for me to reach out to various people to get their feedback, like Cynthia Van Oyen. She was here in 2002 for HYA's search, I'm assuming, when they last did it. So, I mean, I can reach out to these individuals and get their feedback, just what kind of qualities this firm had and why they weren't used again. Perhaps there was a reason that we don't know about. I guess it's helpful to know those things.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that HYA has evolved since 2002, but so, I don't even know that
Yeah,
conversation would be relevant.
Yeah, there's all this,
True.
yeah, it might be stale information from 21 years ago.
I could see that too. Yeah.
21, it was just a year.
No, 2002.
They did the Bloomfield search in 2002. It said on their
Oh,
slide.
the
I wouldn't
Bloomfield
use
search.
the
I thought you were
Bloomfield
making,
search in
I thought you were
2002.
making reference to Paul's previous experience.
I don't
but
think
you-
they were calling me still.
2000
Which many people have. but
Paul
I'm just saying.
I just think that we're having, there's this big emphasis in this conversation about local versus national. I personally don't view this as a local versus national search firm selection. I view it as a search firm selection.
Yeah.
And we have 2 that happen to be local, and we have 1 that's from out of state. To me, it's not about thinking I'm not really hungry to track down out-of-state candidates. I'm hungry for a firm that is going to attract the widest range of highly qualified candidates. And based on my impression of each of the people that presented, I was most impressed with HYA's presentation, their command of the knowledge, the detail that they had. I looked through the other two presentations. Michelle, your questions I thought were really great about the background checks. The other two presentations didn't even describe the depth of the background checks. And as you had pointed out, any basic background check can be perfunctory, and there sounds like it's pretty in-depth and something that's worthwhile. So, yeah, that's it for now.
One thing I will say, right, when you talk about specifics to a presentation, just going back, right, 2019, the firm that we had said all these things and then some. I'm just saying, background, this, that, and the other thing. And they didn't.
So you made a bad choice?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to yeah.
No, give us some background.
It was a good choice.
It was a good choice at the
Why
time.
was it a bad choice?
Because,
I heard you say the timeline, that the timeline took a little
well,
bit longer.
timeline, you know, we were like, they mentioned they would be at, it would be at our disposal, and they really weren't. We were managing, and I don't want to disperse, you know, but also in terms of, you know, we're going to do our due diligence, we're going to do due diligence, and we hear this all the time. There was a candidate that, again, some of us did a Google search, we're like, and that was a top finalist, we're like, how did you not find that out? You know, I mean, just, and so, well, you know, I'm just, and they said, we're going to do 7,000 checks and whatever. I'm like, is a Google search not part of that? I mean, I'm just, you know, I'm just saying that they said all the right things
And
that we
in
heard.
2019, Zoom was not as prevalent as it is now. And to your point, Michelle, Zoom can be extremely impersonal. I think everyone has a love-hate with Zoom, but none of us can deny that it has given us an advantage in terms of quickly connecting with people and just the way we were able to facilitate the conversation tonight. So a 2019 search, I think a 2023 search and the needs of it are different. The capabilities, technology-wise, are different. So
But on a superintendent, oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say.
I was done.
No, I was, and I apologize if on a superintendent search, as much as, yes, we can go digital, that we want these meetings in person.
But maybe I misunderstood. I thought Dr. Shivers said that she's somewhat local and would be able to come out here.
Yes, she can be here.
So that's, maybe I
I
misunderstood
got the
that.
impression it would be a hybrid based on.
Yeah.
It would be hybrid.
Sure.
And we.
I didn't expect her to be here every single time, but we'd have enough.
We had a hybrid in 2009. We had someone who was designated, but the main person, which I'm hearing is the same, the main person was out of state. And we wanted that main person because of knowledge. That's why I asked the question about how much do you know Bloomfield Hills?
Yeah.
2007 to 2010, dealing with, that's not knowing Bloomfield Hills, right?
Well, she's highly connected in the entire education system. It sounds to me like I would be just as comfortable personally with the local representative as the lead presenter.
So the 4 days was on the slide that I brought up. So they have 4 individual consulting days. So they'll come and be in person with us. And anything additional beyond that, so if we need them to come for focus groups or additional interviews, we'd have to, or meetings that they would want us to come and attend in person, then there would be additional costs for those.
Right. I just wanted to say one thing about the timeline, because I brought it up, and then Siva, and I think you know, President Southward said something about us being able to adjust, and my point was more that I felt confident that HYA came in saying, we see your timeline, we don't think it's realistic, and here's what we recommend based on best practices and based on our experience, versus MASB and MLI said, here's what we're going to do. To me, that felt, I think the timeline's very aggressive, what we first were talking about. I think if you are pushing that timeline, not you, but if anybody, if that's what we are in pursuit of, that you're going to get somebody that they kind of already have in mind, that they've already probably got a limited pool that they know. I mean, they said that. They know what's going on. They're well connected. They probably have a short list in their head already of, realistically, here's the people we know. We're still going to look, but it's probably going to end up being this basket, and both of them are going to have that. That's why I think you could have a shorter timeline, but is that really going through the due diligence of getting us the best leader? I don't know. So that was my concern with the timeline, not that we can't adjust it. We're going to tell them what we want at the end of the day.
I was impressed by them proactively bringing that up.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the
I
conversation,
agree. I thought that was very
Siva, you're
transparent.
still there. I think the conversation Siva had with them may have led them to provide us with that timeline based on us expressing that we didn't want to have a gap and have an interim. So I think that may have been a little bit of the onus that was placed on us probably, as opposed to the two presentations last time, given that our superintendent's last day is July 1st, and I think that was probably expressed. Siva, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still there. Actually, the superintendent's last day is the end of July, and I did mention that timeline to them, and that may have factored into their presentation today. And so yeah, absolutely. And I did specifically ask both the question, hey, is this a realistic timeline to find a replacement superintendent? And I think they were answering that question. So, you know, you could say I led them on, but that was a question I had posed to them. And I think their answer was possible.
Okay.
One other concern I had was the lack of concern over local candidates and the lack of, I'm sorry, from the previous presenters last Thursday, was the lack of acknowledgement of what a challenge this is going to be. And I thought HYI addressed that head on, and it seems to me has a strong solution and approach and idea for how to solve for that.
I mean, I think.
That was led by a question, though. I don't know if we asked that same question.
I don't think I asked that the time before, because honestly, I was not sure what to ask a search firm, because this is so new, just to be transparent. And I honestly think that MLI or HYA could do a good job, to be honest with you. I mean, they both are comparable. They probably would do a professional job, but I don't know what would break that tie. So that's why I'm looking to Paul, to what your advice is. And
I mean, again, I'm sorry.
oh yeah, I'm done. I don't know, I was trailing off there.
No, I mean, I honestly think, and I think Michelle nailed it, whether Michelle or Siva led them, right, they had the advantage of watching the other two presentations. They had an extreme advantage, whether we want to admit it or not, to come in and say, oh, they're looking, let's focus a little bit on national. Well, how we can distinguish ourselves? Well, timeline.
To that point, Paul, I had a conversation with them last Thursday. I spoke to them. I left a message for them Wednesday. I spoke to them Thursday, discussed with them on the phone. I heard everything from them on the phone that I heard tonight, which is the reason that I pushed that we have this interview with them. So I can see how that would be the perception that they had a leg up, but I can say personally that the conversation on the phone impressed me so much that, you know, I would like this, I don't want to rush the superintendent's decision, but I do want to move along this decision because we need to get the ball rolling. And so I didn't want to delay. My preference was we make a decision Thursday night. But I was so impressed by what I heard on the phone that I thought we need to hear from them. So to that point that they had an advantage, I didn't see a difference between what I heard over the phone versus what I saw presented.
Fair point, right? So, fair point. But to my experience, I heard from the firm, and I don't want to name the firm in 2019 that we spoke, we were blown away, similar to how you were blown away. We're like, national, they gave all these stats, this and that. We're going to have pool of people from New York, Wisconsin, wherever. The people we got from New York, Wisconsin, I'm like, not even, it was like whatever they presented went out the window. So what was important. And yes, they have a lot, again, this whole hybrid approach just didn't work. It was having someone on the ground here, being available here, for us. And then what we didn't do a lot of in 2019, at least I didn't do a lot of, not saying the rest of the board didn't, is due diligence in terms of finding out from other people that use them, what was their impression. And that's why I spent a lot of time on the firms here, and overwhelmingly the people that used MLI, gave astounding remarks. And these are some of the people I asked. They're tough people that they would say if they were not a firm to use, And that's what sold me more so than any of their presentations. That's more important to me at this point.
Sure.
And, I would be even, like I said, even more curious as to, and maybe I should have asked this question, how many superintendent searches were they, asked to give a presentation from last time within the last 3 years, and they weren't selected? And only asking that because they actually, maybe you should have left this slide out, I don't really know. But the slide 21, where it indicates that, the last search they've conducted in Michigan was from this time frame. And I would imagine if they had something within the last 3 years, that perhaps maybe this wouldn't have been from 92 to 2020. So, and I know last year, there were so many superintendent searches that were ongoing. And to have, I want to say there was at least 10 superintendent searches, and not to have one of those be included in this.
Cost might have been a concern, and cost should be a concern. I don't, we can speculate, none of us will know really the reason why cost is a concern, but to me, the ability to translate the language services when soliciting opinions and feedback from our community, I think is worth that cost, even though I find other things, to me, that's a big one, but.
Another thing that concerns me a little bit is what you brought up about how they haven't done a search in Michigan since 2020, which means that Dr. Shivers really doesn't work for them, right? Because she's here in Michigan. She's their Michigan person. She's only on board because they want to get our work, is what I would think. That it's not her.
It's a good business model.
It's not right, but it's not
It's a
her.
good business model to
Consultant.
have a local affiliate.
Right, but it's not her job.
Bring 'em in just
is what I'm saying.
temporarily.
She has another job.
Yeah, which diversifies her perspective, if you think about it.
I'm just saying that they're
That's
like,
not strictly what she does.
they
She has other
say
experiences
we
she
have
can bring to the
associates
table.
in all of these states, but probably like, what I'm saying is it's a part-time position at most for all those states.
Yeah, I like the idea of someone who doesn't do it full-time coming on board and bringing her diverse set of experiences to the table. So I think you can look at that both ways. I don't see it as a negative by any means.
To Paul's point
were you
earlier,
done?
I don't know if you were done, sorry.
I mean, either way, we're stuck in this local, like, it's all local at the end of the day. Oakland schools, like, it's.
But I just, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not like, oh, I definitely think we're going to get a national candidate. My point is, I feel like with MASB definitely, and a little bit more with MY as well, that like there's less of a desire to really give us a huge pool. Like, we're going to get a subset of what's out there, which maybe that's all we're going to get, but I just feel like HYA is going to go a little farther.
Just to, not to jump in.
Wait,
Yeah,
hold
that's
on for a
okay.
second.
No, I just want to
Caroline.
answer, just
Go
on
for
that
it.
before I forget the thought. No, I'm just saying,
Go ahead.
I thought that in 2019.
So this firm has to suffer the consequences of that one not meeting your needs?
No, because I've done in addition, I've spoken to other people, like, who have had that same thought pattern recently. And the same thing, they were wowed by a national, and they're going to tell you what you want to hear, and it's not going to be any different than going with, and
Yeah.
right, and to Megan's point, it's not, going with a firm that's perceived to be local.
Do you,
Trustee, can we let Trustee Noble just ask her?
Yeah,
question?
Sorry.
She's tried 8 times. Sorry.
I honestly can't remember what I was going to say, but I wanted to address the cost and just bring up the concern a little bit and just make the argument that I don't think cost should be that huge of a deal, because we're talking about $10,000 of a difference, and we're speaking about a district that has its millions of dollars. So $10,000 to me isn't the factor that I would weigh in my decision. I know costs are important, but we need to get the right company.
We have a lot of ways we can cut $10,000.
Yeah, exactly. I think so, too.
I never brought up tonight.
I brought up the cost because I think it starts at 10,000 and it can grow from there. I think even if you look at the search that Paul conducted, it started at I want to say 14 and ended up at 22. So where it starts and where it can end is ongoing, especially if you have a limit of 4 contacts, right?
Yeah, but my point was,
Go ahead.
is I didn't bring up tonight, reason why I don't like is cost. It was, I've done
This is one of my
personally some
factors.
due diligence, and the people I've spoken to, and like I said, harsh people that would give it to me straight,
Can you mute?
that person agrees.
Oh, wait, Siva, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was gonna just clarify on the numbers.
okay.
The quote from the firm involved in 2019 was $19,000,
$19,000.
which was comparable to HYA's present quote. But when you include the travel and the other costs involved, the total cost for the search ended up at 29K, 29 and change, just south of 30K.
Yeah, so.
And
Thank you, Siva.
Yeah, so,
Thank you.
no, I'm sorry, to your point, right? Not, obviously, it's very, very important, so I'm not nickel and diming on 10,000. It's asking people who are real harsh and would give it to me straight that this MLI, to them, wowed them. And the people I asked, they're not easily wowed. I'm just saying. So take that for what that's worth.
I guess my concern in asking the questions about cost is because if we're looking at comparatively what we're getting, we're paying substantially more money to get this, what I would seem to be, in looking at MLI, a comparative amount of work. And so when you think about the one additional service that is provided, perhaps maybe we could ask MLI if they provide an additional service opportunity in that direction. So when I looked at all firms, I really could not see the difference in what they would provide to pay that much more money for the same service. So that was why I wanted to know the costs associated, if the outcomes are going to ultimately be the same based on, John's map, because he's Mr. Map today, and how they hired folks that may have not been in the state, your map you went through, but they weren't that far away.
They do a
Right.
nice job of trying to pretend like they hired these out-of-state candidates, but they didn't,
So, and it's just, I want to make sure that we're also good stewards of how we spend, and that to me is just not looking at nickel and diming, but just doing when you compare one organization to the other, that's $10,000 that we also are taking away from our students if we don't have to. If the quality is there with the organization, then we should go with the quality that's presented by the organization.
Are we, okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
Are we prepared to vote tonight? I guess
Well,
that's the question.
there were
I
some
have.
concerns to not vote tonight.
Okay.
So we want to have that talk, because we do
Yeah.
have another meeting in a week.
Vote on whether we vote.
To vote?
Is there a
We
motion?
could always
Well, no,
decide
the
to-
motion
we could
is in,
decide to
is,
table it.
if
I
you-
guess,
we haven't even gotten to the superintendent firm selection, which is where we do a motion. If we want to close the discussion, we can go close the discussion in table C, but we're still in B.
We could, yeah. I
We
mean,
could make a motion, have a discussion whether or not we're going to table or vote.
Because I think at least 2 board members expressed, or 3 board members expressed. Did you express?
I'm good to vote.
I mean, I can vote.
I'm ready to vote.
Vote. Are you okay tonight?
I would prefer
you'll
to
vote?
wait just till Thursday's meeting to make a final decision, but
It's not, it's the following Thursday.
Well, we'll
Yeah,
have
that's
to
what I
do,
meant.
it's not,
Thursday.
it's 11th, it'll be May 11th.
oh, okay.
Okay. So if we do vote, it would, Siva, unfortunately, we appreciate you, but you're unable to participate in the voting. So if we're going to close out, is anyone else need additional discussion?
I don't.
Nope.
Okay. We do need to move on to item 3C. I do need a motion, no, wait. No motion until we pick a firm. Can we have a discussion as to what firm you would not like to choose between maybe your least?
sure.
Then that way, we don't have to have a discussion
Yeah.
about that third firm, and maybe we can just talk about the 2 firms, and then we make a motion at the end of the firm that we select.
Yeah,
What
makes sense.
I'm hearing, right?
hearing me say?
What I'm hearing people say is that the firm that we probably is not in the running would be MASB.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
Right.
Although I did like MASB, I would agree and move with the group, and we would be talking between HYA and MLI. Okay.
It seems like most of our discussion tonight was about those two, generally, so
Yeah.
I'm prepared to make. a
I
vote
felt
for-
like MASB, MLA were similar, but MLA was stronger in what they, in their process and what they present, so.
Okay. So if we can maybe do a roll call vote, and you provide me with not a yes or a no, but the organization that you would like for us to move forward with. So your vote would be to say HYA or MLI. Okay? Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Fala,
HYA.
Trustee Hill,
HYA.
Trustee Van Gemeret,
MLI.
and I am MLI. Trustee Colvin,
I really don't want to go 3-3. MLI.
and Trustee Noble.
What are the Roberts rules if I don't?
You have to vote.
You have to
You
vote.
have to? Oh, man, come on.
That's why you're here.
Well, I will just vote MLI.
Okay. So we have 2 in support of HYA and 4 in support of MLI. So now we move to a motion. I need a motion from the table.
I move that the Board of Education engage MLI to be our professional search firm for the superintendent search.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
Look, I think HY is better. In my opinion, yes, compared to MLA. But if we can control the scope really well and inform them of exactly what we're looking for, which we have to do. And if this takes longer, this takes longer. But if we can commit to that, then I'm comfortable with MLA. I wasn't totally against them, and with your recommendation, your experience, I think that brings a lot to the table. So I'm comfortable with that. But we do have to do a good, I don't want them to just have a bag of, here's who we definitely think. We need to, I expect them to do a good job of asking, what are the attributes that we feel, and part of mine are, it's not just going to be somebody that's in here with 25 years experience in this district or another district. I want the best leader that will be able to come here.
I think what
Agreed.
we're saying as a group, and I'm totally on board with this, is that if they come back with a pool that were not acceptable, go back, and go back again. I mean, if this takes, a year, 2 year, whatever, if the recommendation is the fall, right, we got the recommendation, at least we got information. If we can tell them, it's like our recommendation from another firm that was close, very close, was the fall, then, if we don't have a pool, then you're going to go into the fall pool.
Yeah, if the pool doesn't have out-of-state candidates and at least one non-traditional candidate, I'm going to be disappointed, and I'm going to think that I made the wrong choice.
I don't want this to feel like this is a big thing just waiting, here you go, and it was already in the, I want them to do some work. And so, I don't, maybe they already think they know, maybe MSB thought they knew, but I want them to do the work and show us why. Show me the work, just like we're doing a math problem, we ask our kids to show me the work, show me the steps why you think this candidate is the next leader for our district, not just because they have X number of years, they're 10 miles away. I don't care about all that. I want the best leader. So if they can do that work, you feel confident, I'm confident in what you bring and your experience with that.
I'd also like to hear how they're going to survey community members who can't speak English.
I think that's a good point. And we can add that. I mean, that was a key factor of what HYA had, so I think that needs to be a key factor in this process too.
What I liked about them as well is that they'll allow us to look at all the candidates they said during the presentation. Unlike, I heard Ray and Associates kept all the candidates that weren't chosen.
We eventually pushed them to look at the candidate. I mean,
Okay.
but to all of our points, and Tarek said it, I mean, they're engaged for us, right? And if we want something to be done, if we're going to say, you need to hire someone to translate,
Which is an additional cost.
which is an additional cost, but, you know, I
Probably
mean,
significant for the amount that we'd have to facilitate.
but I'm just saying, that's our choice, to ask them to do that, and they should, you know, I guess, obviously HYA can do it. They, you know, might be able to find a resource to do that.
Siva, do you mind, after this conversation, engaging with MLI regarding?
Yeah,
the-
I'm always like,
Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
Yeah.
Was that a yes?
I think that's a yes.
All right.
We haven't voted yet.
Any additional discussion? I wasn't. I just want to make sure
Yes.
he was taking notes.
So we have a
All right.
motion, we have a
So
vote.
we have a motion. Any more
Oh, no.
discussion?
Okay, oh, no, no more, we have a motion, okay.
Yeah, there's a motion. We captured the motion.
Yep.
Okay, so now we will vote. All those in favor of MLI being our search firm?
You want to do roll call, Michelle?
No. You want to do work? No, I think people are,
I mean, I made my opinion clear. I can just,
Yeah.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 6-0 in favor. Okay,
Is that it?
meeting adjourned.